Hello YouTube, welcome back to another Talking Tech episode. Guys, today we're going to be talking about, you guessed it, Nvidia, AMD, as well as what's going on with the current generation of graphics cards and what's coming next with DDR5, PCI Gen 4 support, and where we are actually with technology at the moment. Welcome to the episode. Alright guys, so let's just get straight into the crux of the video today. Nvidia brings out a 12-pin plug for their video cards. Now, most of you are going, oh geez, I can't upgrade and I can't do all these things with my computer now if I buy any new RTX video card that's coming out from Nvidia in the 3000 series. Well, I've got news for you guys. This technology, this plug system, should have been implemented at least 12 years ago when power supplies started getting up into, the 500s, the 600s, the 700s, the 800s and so on, way back when. Simple fact is, having a single plug on a graphics card is going to be a much nicer presentation. It's going to offer a better quality of between your 12-volt rails and your GPU. It's going to offer you something that pretty much just allows you to have a nice clean single cable running from your GPU. And for most of us enthusiast level IT people, we like to have clean runs of cables from our GPU, CPU, and wherever we can really. So this is something that should have come in over 12 years ago, but it just didn't. And this is where Nvidia's arrogance and stupidity are reigning supreme. Now, when we're talking about, your power supply being able to run a 12-pin plug and rah-rah-rah, or 2 6-pins going to matter, is it going to work, etc.? Yes. So, most power supplies, now this is going to be the big caveat for most people that no YouTuber is talking about to date, is that the fact your power supply that you have right now is probably power-wise, delivery-wise, insufficient. And I blame most tech tubers for this because they say, oh, you can get away with a 650 watt power supply, a 750 watt power supply, and that's more than enough for your system. No, it is not, and it never will be. If you're running LEDs, you are running multiple hard drives, including SSDs, M.2 drives, very high-end video cards, as well as very power-hungry CPUs, 10900K, right? Or the 9900K. You are looking at a quite of a large power draw from that power supply. Now, if you have something like a cheapy Antec or a Superflower or something that's not even labeled in your computer right now, I will tell you immediately you do not have a sufficient power supply for the new RTX 3000 series. That's the end of the conversation. Now, no YouTuber is going to tell you that, or tech tuber, because they're worried about what their sponsors are going to say. If you remember, guys, I'm not sponsored, and I just say it how it is. Guys, the AIB partners, which are companies like ASRock, ASUS, whomever else, Zotac, whoever else, are going to offer, obviously, an adapter plug, but you're going to have a problem. It's going to be a dual 6-pin to 8 and a 4-pin connector. I'm not sure whether AIBs are going to have to provide a separate customized 12 to dual 8-pin connector. I don't know how it's going to work, but if you want to run PCI power, graphics card power to your power supply, is a 6 or an 8-pin, as you already know. And that's the 8-pin with the other 2 prongs hanging off the side. I would say that's what they're going to do, is they're basically going to do, 2 8-pins into the 12-pin, and they're going to somehow splice in the additional, or remove the additional pins. I'm not sure. It's an arrogant, stupid move by Nvidia. Once again, Nvidia is going the way of Intel. And their stupidity, arrogance, and disgusting behavior towards industry and consumers has got to a point now where it's truly complacent and extremely disgusting. If you are to also buy the Big Navi card coming out, you will also need a high end power supply as well. So RTX is not your only concern here. AMD will also be bringing it to the market with a very high power draw as well. Probably that to equal that of the 3080 Ti, the 3080, the 3070 Ti, the 3070. You get the whole drift of it. I would highly recommend the lowest power supply you would need right now, and I'm saying running that power supply's head off, is a 750 watt power supply. If you have anything below that, you will not be able to run these new cards with your CPU, with your RAM, with the LEDs, with your hard drives, and whatever else you got connected to your system that draws power like USB hubs. Guys, this especially if you have something like my Tiamat headset, which actually requires USB power to power the DAC, to then power the headphones from the actual computer if you're using the actual headphones on the onboard audio. If you're using a sound card or a PCI insert card of any kind, including my capture card, you've got to account for those power draws as well. So 850 is going to be my recommended, and anywhere up to 1000 watt power supply, good quality if you're running a rig anything like mine. Guys, it's just that simple. The tech tubers are paid to not tell you this stuff because it is going to shake up the market. It is going to upset a lot of people. There'll be a lot of people buying these new RTX cards, whether it's Founders Edition or not, and you're going to find you're going to be running into power delivery bottlenecks. And it's going to be the next big talking point on tech tubing channels because, you know, that's why they're also doing it. So they've got content to talk about moving forward. We didn't expect this to happen. Well, they did, and they do, and they are, and this is why they're holding back on telling you now. So just be aware, remember this video in about 4 months, 5 months time, when it's the big new hot talking point. Oh, you know, do you need a 1000 watt power supply? No, you don't, but you do need an 850 at minimum. Or, you know, recommended. 750 is going to be the new minimum. Guys, it's abhorrent how Nvidia's behaving. It's abhorrent how the big tech tubers are behaving. Even the ones I like, because they're not leaking this information ahead of time. And you know, AMD is going to have a dual 5700 XT GPU. The thing's going to be a monster. And it's going to draw power like a monster. This new NVIDIA GPU is massive monolithic. Yeah, and it's got all that RAM on it as well. It is going to be at 354 watts, I think it was, under normal stock loads. What about overclocking the damn thing? You're going to be looking at 400 to 500 watts, maybe less, most probably less, but still a huge amount of wattage getting drawn out of your PSU. And at the end of the day, guys, you do not want to run your PSU balls to the wall. You always want to have some headroom for cooling, for overheating, for performance, and also for any energy spikes that come through your power lines in your wall. Now, that's one thing that's not really ever discussed as well, especially in America. 120 watts is a super low quality delivery of power supply compared to Australia's 240. We have nice constant electricity supply, but we also get brownouts and spikes from time to time too, as our aging infrastructure is suffering terribly under a very badly led government who sold off all electricity hardware and power plants to private companies. In America, guys, your entire power network is literally running, on thin ice. At any time, if any one power station goes down, you have whole grids or parts of your country go down. It's been documented in past, and there's been many occasions in hot summers when that's happened to you guys. With 120 watt, you are losing that stability and that consistency of power supply. So if you have a spike, you want a power supply that can handle it, especially if overloads happen or brownouts happen. The capacitors and the way in which the power supply is put together and designed, I can take you through a whole video of how power supplies work. Very dry, very boring. But I've learnt myself that you have to have a power supply that is always about 250 watts in reserve on top of your max load of power draw to put up with brownouts and power spikes. Now, yeah, I'm in Australia, we've got that luxury of having great power, crappy internet, but that's the thing. In that respect, 250 watts for me, I'm not even at 250 watts anymore because I've added this capture card in. It's actually put my wattages up to under full load 931 watts because I've just got so much stuff crammed into that box. And that's, you know, the thing. I'm eventually going to have to get a 1200 watt power supply for myself, and that's mind-boggling. When I bought my 1000 watt, what is it? It's a HX1000i Corsair power supply. I thought I would never, even with two 1080 Ti's in SLI, you know, would I have to worry about ever upgrading past that power supply. I didn't end up getting the 1080 Ti's in SLI for obvious reasons, and Now I'm looking at having a new single graphics card coming up in September, October. That's going to almost tap out my 1000i. Well, guys, we're at the end of a generation of CPUs, GPUs, and how motherboards are made. DDR5 is coming in soon, early next to mid next year, which means we will be seeing a new generation of X670 boards, all the way down to A620s, whatever they are, B660s or 650s. We are going to be looking at a new way in which RAM works, PCI slots work, how hardware, your hard drives, how your storage, how your graphics cards, how everything works. Now, whether that's going to at first be a power saving is very much left to be seen. I believe once they first implement the technology, just like all new technologies, it's going to have power caveats. Some things are going to run more efficiently and other things are going to run terribly. Anyone who's building a gaming computer out there, I will just say to you guys right now, if you're building a gaming computer, do not expect a cheap electricity bill. It's just that simple. Hardware's getting more powerful, but it's not getting more efficient. It's getting smaller in the nanometer node development, but it's not getting more power efficient. And this is something that AMD and Nvidia and Intel have been, you know, chirping on about for so long now. Oh, the 7 nanometer, especially the UV process, it's going to save you so much more power. It's 10 times more efficient, 50 times more efficient. No, it's not. You're losing efficiency, or you're gaining efficiency to then have to deal with thermal and power loss, because heat loses and creates energy, which means if something's running hotter, you're using more power to run it because it's lost energy that gets pumped out into your room. So yeah, the old 8350X FX AMD CPUs, you know, the old space heater CPUs, I had one of them back in the day, and on a nice ASRock board at that. And yeah, that used to literally warm up my living room in a space of about half an hour, and I mean warm. I couldn't actually overclock that thing in summer, obviously, because it was just so terrible. We're looking at that with the 10900K, the new 10980XE, and now we're looking at that with new NVIDIA monolithic GPUs as well as dual GPU cards from AMD. Guys, this is another thing too, cooling, adequate cooling. Now, the Founders Edition cards, we know for a fact, you've got a fan on the front and a fan on the back, and a separate big chip, which I think is going to be for add-in RTX cards. So NVLink will finally be used for something purposeful for once. And then you're going to be looking at additional costs to get not DLSS 2.0, fake 4K over 60 frames. You're going to be able to have RTX add-on card into another PCI slot, obviously your second slot on your motherboard, to be able to actually achieve real RTX, which is fantastic. So where does that bring us with the AMD card? This is two 5700 XTs, highly binned on one card. Do you think we're going to need AMD ray tracing add-in cards for that card? Probably not. So NVIDIA's arrogance and stupidity and just generally bad behavior has brought them out a power pen plug which should have come out 12 years ago and widely adopted already, or a 16 obviously as well. Would have been much nicer than having two separate cables running off your GPU too, just one nice ribbon looking cable. Common sense, guys. We should have had this a long time ago. So I'm not knocking Nvidia for bringing it out, but I am knocking Nvidia for being so arrogant about it and just throwing it in your face that you have to have this because otherwise you can't use our graphics cards. So this elitism, this arrogance, this Intel behavior, Nvidia and Intel really are sharing a bed together, whether they like it or not, and they're both massively suffering from it in the process. Now, one of the main concerns that I have is that AMD were meant to come back into the market. They were meant to be able to create a competitive edge and, bring competition back into a stagnating market where Nvidia and Intel truly had monopoly and dominance over everything in the market, especially pricing, and obviously very laxed performance increases generation on generation. Hence why I kept my 4790K until I waited until the 9900Ks came out, but then at the same time AMD came along with the 1800X, and I'm a content creator. So which CPU did I go for? The one that actually I need. So it's a funny game. But what AMD have gone and done is they have changed their complete and utter methodology of how to run a business. Lisa Su has come in like the Jesus of AMD and brought light to the darkness, and the consistency, reliability, and consistent improvement of, for the most part, good IPC gains and good implementation of advances in technology. The consistency of bringing Radeon back online and getting the cards through generational development better and better. Doing some refreshes, just like Nvidia does, to look at where that previous generation of hardware could get to before they worry about bringing out the next one, or if they've already done that, to look at and learn from where they made mistakes in their architecture before. One thing about Intel and their GPUs, Intel, I have nothing against Roger Kaduri personally. As a human being, I'm sure he's a lovely fellow, but mate, you are not someone who should be at this level of position within any IT company architecturally designing graphics cards. You simply do not have the competency that is required to compete on the consumer competitive end. You are very good at what you do. You are very good at making industry, AI, and all those GPUs, but you are not someone who should have ever worked for AMD making gaming GPUs. It's not your level of expertise or your area of expertise, and I find it just a little bit of a pity that you did go to Intel. When you did, you should have maybe jumped ship a lot earlier and let AMD kind of get rid of you, I'm sorry to say, for their benefit, and have you move over to Intel to work on more of the industry-focused GPU work, your Quadro level kind of cards, which you are now doing at Intel. And I won't speak on how well you're doing that because I think the audience has already made up their mind on the ZE cards or XE cards from Intel at the moment. So, guys, look, Intel's not going to come into the market as a consumer end competitor at least for another 10 years. So, write Intel off. It's still between AMD and Nvidia, and it looks like Nvidia have just gone and shot themselves in the foot because they're trying to focus on the AI market for self-driving cars, etc., rocketry and all that type of stuff, and gaming. But then somewhere in between corporate video cards for servers and CAD modelers and 3D Quadro cards, they've lost focus on what's important. Now, at the end of the day, they started off as a GPU game company, ATI, and Intel never tried to ever muscle in on that market space. They did their own, APUs, onboard graphics, just because they can, but it wasn't to compete with, the likes of Nvidia or ATI. Now, Nvidia bought out ATI, didn't do them any favors. Radeon came in, which is ATI anyway, ATI Radeon, who got relaunched by AMD, which was probably the smartest thing they did back when they were floundering around. They relaunched their GPU division, which I think is now going to pay off in the extreme long run to be one of the biggest decisions made that is going to help that company actually be what it could always be. And that is a consumer-focused, high-end, high-performance, best value for money, best performance per dollar product out there. Nvidia, I think, is a bit bipolar at the moment with their arrogance. They're forcing the Apple approach onto people. You have to use this, otherwise you can't use our products. Come into our ecosystem. And I think that we're in a situation where this isn't hard to make. So why wasn't it done prior to now by PSU makers? Let alone, why wasn't it supported by graphics cards or motherboards or anything like that prior? So you can't just blame your power supply maker. You can't blame the brand. You've got to blame industry for not adopting such a common sense thing so very long ago. Now, yes, it's given rise to custom cabling and all that cool stuff. But at the end of the day, custom cabling is an additional expense. I've got a Corsair power supply, and I found out the pinouts from the actual power supply and cables are different in setup to that of a generic extension cable kit, or whatever you want to do. Go the full sleeve kit, through Cable Mod. You've got to actually buy, in my case, Corsair actual compatible HX 1000i extension kits or cabling kits because of the way in which the PSU works. Now, this does reflect for EVGA. I think Cooler Master is generic, but EVGA have the same problem, as well as a couple of other companies that I won't mention at the moment because it's not, talking about power supply day. So, 30% improvement over the 2080 Ti. Well, the Big Navi card has already been boasted to perform 40% better than the 2080 Ti. 10% you go, it's 10% from AMD. Better than Nvidia itself on its own card, guys. By the way, there has been information to prove that this is all legitimate. I'll just bring it up here. So basically, unknown NVIDIA Ampere GPU, 6100 megahertz on the RAM, which is DDR6. Even though they say it's DDR5, I get DDR. I guess, all right. I get 6000 and something megahertz out of my RAM on my 1080 Ti, but you are pushing the ragged edge. This is going to be within tolerances, so I'd say it's DDR6. 1935 megahertz. Ooh, whoopie ducks. I got 2065 out of my 1080 Ti. These aren't impressive numbers. And we're talking about the EVGA Kingpin card, the 2080 Ti Kingpin card, still beating it. It's 100 megahertz difference in IPC itself between the 2080 Ti and the new 3080 Ti. When we're talking about RAM speeds, yes, they go up. And that's where you're getting performance from. RAM, not the GPU itself, not the actual physicalized hardware. The last thing to go into a video card. It worries me quite badly because these are synthetic benchmarks. They're not real world, and none of it has any relevance to anything in gaming or in 3D design or rendering. It's all very synthetic and it's all made up. But see here, you've got confirmation from China again. It's always China does the leaks. Everyone hates China. Well, they're the ones giving this information, guys. So it's the GA102, so it's the new die to 3080 Ti spec. GA102 is the actual core, 5376 CUDA cores. Yeah, production sample maybe. 7 nanometer boost core frequency, 2.2 gigahertz. Single precision floating point, 21 teraflops, 12 gigabytes, 18 gigabytes a second, DDR6. There you go. So all those tech tubers out there, I want you to pay attention to this on my screen right now. Why are you telling the general public, from all of your assumptions and speculation and all the crap you're carrying on with, saying it's DDR5? It's a simple technical fact. A technician, somebody who's a tech tuber, you should already know this. This is basic technical math of RAM, of how random access memory works. And I worked that out because, I'm not going to lie to people. So there you go, guys. GDDR6 is now on video cards as a standard. You're going to also see GDDR6 on the Big Navi 2, contradictory to all the speculation and crap coming out of the tech tubers' mouths. Total bandwidth 863 gigabits a second. That's pretty powerful, but it's just not powerful enough for true next generation gaming. It will be, you know, the 2080 Ti by the time new games of the new generation come out next year and the year after, more importantly, and these cards are going to be of your 1080 Ti by that time in performance. So do not waste your money. Do not waste your money on stepping stone cards, which I'll get to in just a moment. And 320 watts TDP stock. You want to overclock this puppy? 475 watts is probably 465. That's where you're going to end up. So think of that and the power supply you got at the moment, plus your current power draw. Now you can get a PowerPoint adapter, which you can obviously plug, you know, your whole system into on a power board and then run that through the actual draw meter. You'll find that you're running a lot more wattage than you realize already. And a 650 watt power supply is simply not going to get you there. If you have a 750, it better be a high quality gold or platinum level power supply, just because of the loads that you're going to be thrown at it. You do not want droop. You want a minimalistic droop and consistent power delivery to be able to feed this monster. And it's the same with AMD. I'm not jumping on AMD's bandwagon at all. They're both going to draw a lot of power. Now, 320 watts at stock is pretty nuts. When we're talking about overclocking to 465, 475 watts, that's insanity. That's of the old 7970 cards from AMD. And you know, the old NVIDIA cards of the day. Just insane power draw for not much more performance. So guys, we are talking about 30%, which is the bare minimum benchmark for a next generation card, yeah? 40 to 50% is what is recommended or desirable for stepping stone technology. So we're leaving an old technology behind. So let's talk about the 980 Ti and the 1080 Ti. The 1080 Ti was 43% better than a 980 Ti. And people are saying the card was just too good. No, it was what had to be delivered to actually advance the technology forward. Now, with the 2080 Ti, it's 14% better than a 1080 Ti. Why would you spend nearly 3,000 Australian dollars on that card for what? And the games that you have now don't need that improvement. The next generation of games that come out, the Unreal Engine 5 games, and whatever other engines are really pushing their limits, and we're talking about photorealism, those engines and games will need a 2080 Ti. But if you buy a 3080 Ti or any of the new 3000 series, and you think you're going to get a wonderful experience from a better graphics card, when the game itself, if it's running at anywhere from 65 at its minimum frames or above minimum frames, 0.01 minimums, right? If you're consistently staying above 60 frames a second at your 0.1 minimums, you're never going to see the improvements or the FPS on the screen when you're playing a game, because your eyes automatically adjust to that frame change and back. The human brain is amazing. You don't need more than a 1080 Ti as we speak. You just, that's a 1440p, guys. 2080 Ti gets you an extra, what, 15 to 17, 18 frames? Who cares? Maybe 20 frames if you've got a really good one or whatever. But it's not a visual or a immersive change to your gaming experience. It's just not. You think it is through the placebo effect, but it's not. And you're massive out of pocket for a gimmick card that doesn't do what it says it does even to start with. Now, the one thing I'm hoping to God and glory out of all of this is that with the 3000 series, they bring these RTX add-on cards in for the 2000 series and the 3000 series. Because at the end of the day, ray tracing is where NVIDIA has fallen on its face. It over-marketed it, over-hyped it, oversold it, over-lied about it, continually tried to defend itself because it just works. No, it doesn't. And I hope to God, just for the sake of humility and education, that Nvidia get that real kick in the head from AMD with this new Big Navi card, fingers crossed for that fact only, that yes, it is a dual GPU card, but you know what? It does ray tracing properly at 4K. That's all we've been asking for, guys. We don't need branding and pretty colors and big letters. We just need the hardware to do what it says it's going to do. And that's what AMD have not promised to date, is this big kind of ray tracing thing. They're very quiet about it. Yes, it will do ray tracing and it'll do it above over 60 frames at 4K. That's what they're saying. It's just that is going to work because you have the power of 2 graphics processors with a chunk of RTX ray tracing cores slapped on the board with the RAM, and yes, it's going to be a triple fan solution. Of course it's going to have to be, or it's going to be a hybrid water-cooled solution like the Fury was. But you know what? AMD hopefully will get it right first time. Hopefully just slightly, even by 5%, outperform the 3080 Ti in gaming and in ray tracing. If it does that, then we can go, okay, look, they're both as good as each other. Which one costs less? That's it. It doesn't matter. You don't have to fanboyism for Nvidia or AMD. I have 2 Nvidia cards already. I'm the last person to say that I'm a fanboy. I'm completely agnostic because I own AMD and Intel hardware as well. And if I could have owned a really nice AMD card, I would have made my build a full AMD build already. There's no discussions about that because I like putting things together and branding. Then my computer, on the other hand, it's a bit of a mixed match of brands because it had to be for performance purposes only. So guys, look, end of the day, if you are to buy any of this new generation of video cards, my heart goes out to you. Nvidia has discontinued the 2000 series. My biggest and best advice to you right now, wait to see what Big Navi brings to the table. Wait to see what the 3080 actually does on a bench and tested in real time, Gamers Nexus for example, and actually see it in action, see it working. Don't believe the tabloids, don't believe the hype, don't believe all of the tech tuber bullshit. Just wait till you see these cards in action, working against each other on a test bench in real time, showing actual gameplay. And the gameplay being set up stock. No, changing this and ambient occlusion getting turned off and whatever else. We want to see these 2 cards on a bench next to each other in 2 separate benches, exactly the same hardware aside from that, and we want to see 2 screens on a desk with the frames, with a frame counter on the screen. That's what we want to see. If AMD outperforms Nvidia, fantastic. If it doesn't, it's just below Nvidia, well shit, if it's going to cost $400 less, I'm going with the Big Navi card because I do a lot of content creation. I need something that's going to really smash those frames. Now yes, Nvidia, I know. That's why I've got Nvidia cards already, because of content creation and NVEC processing for my rendering. So I'm torn myself. I'm going to buy what I need, and it might not yet be a 3080 Ti. It might be a 3070, it might be a 3080. I don't know yet. I'm going to have to literally, like everybody else who's got a brain in their head, wait, don't pre-order, don't waste your money. And if you've already got a 1080 Ti, guys, or a 2070 or a 2080, supers or not, just wait for the next generation of cards to come out. Don't worry about Big Navi. Don't worry about the 3000 series, because as I've already said in the video, you're going to be behind the 8 ball when the super powerful new cards come out. And yes, this new Nvidia card has PCI Gen 4 support, but it doesn't mean it's going to actually leverage it properly until PCI 4 is a standard. Okay, they did that same with PCI 2 and PCI 1. Just wait, guys. You're not going to jump ahead of the market with a faster PCI slot at all. Don't go buy a new motherboard. Don't, if you can afford it with your current tech that you've got, to upgrade anything at the moment. Don't buy anything you do not need, as this whole entire platform we're on now for Intel and AMD is coming to a final end. We are looking at the next generation of CPUs, GPUs, RAM, motherboards, as well as how hardware works with storage. okay, and how PCI lanes work with storage. Don't waste your money. If you already have a 3000 series processor, it should be able to be plonked into, fingers crossed and toes crossed, into the new sockets, but I'm not making any promises. I'm the disclaimer here, I could be completely wrong. So just wait on that. But for now, if you've got anything that is serviceable and mostly current, even a 7700K, guys, even a 4790K at 1440p with a GTX 1080 or a 5700 XT, that'll get you by for at least another year or two before you need to upgrade. So don't get caught up in the hype. That's what I'm saying, guys. Be analytical, watch my channel. I'll get you the results and all the information and the facts. I will then tell you, look, it's a good go or it's a no-go. And at the end of the day, it's your money, it's your pocket. Yes, it's your choice, but at least do your research, take from what I've learned, and then make a qualified, educated decision. Anyway, guys, as per usual, and as per always, peace out. Cheers. Catch you in the next one.